Here I have the rails that the record player ran on, and there's 4 ball bearings in there, and there are also a couple of rods, I don't know if it's ebonite or graphite or something, that fit in between, I guess, to stop the ball bearings rolling right back. But I've given these a clean up. These had quite a lot of corrosion and possibly some dried up grease or something in the bottom there. So I'll scrape that out. Basically used my bottle cleaner for some of it. A bit of steel wool on a piece of wire. Had to really get that in there to get rid of the rust, corrosion. And yeah, I think there was some grease in there. I think I'll re-grease these. And I've got the drawer out as well. That's the big original hole that it had in it, and someone's cut out a few bits and pieces, made a bit of a mess of it. I've put a couple of new screws in this back panel because that was loose. I put a couple of longer ones. They're Phillips head, which they shouldn't really be, but that'll have to do. And that has a couple of rails on the ends of it. These rails on the sides. And to get the thing out, basically had to bend these end bits up. I think it was on these pieces, must have been. So basically there's this rail runs inside the other one with the ball bearing in between, underneath this one and above the other. And so it doesn't come out, they actually bend this end bit round so the ball bearing comes along and hits the end. So you just got to get some, I'd use side cutters, large side cutters to bend the end bit up. Then you can roll the drawer right out, but you need to tilt the cabinet forwards towards the front side, because these ball bearings will just run down those other rails and out the back. Because once it's free, you've got these on the sides and it just rolls along once that drawer comes out. But they're at least rolling nicely, but yeah, they're just dry. I don't think there's any wear to the ball bearings. They seem to run nicely now. But I'm thinking again, I might, like I did with the record player, I'll get a bit of this grease. I think I'll smear a bit down the bottom of this one and the top of the other ones, because they're the 2 faces that get sort of all the pressure onto the ball bearings. And we'll put this back in the cabinet. And yeah, that's the other piece that someone made up to fit the other Garrard record player in there. They did a pretty rough job of it, but I guess it does a job. They sort of looks like they painted it in there, because these screws that held that to the other piece have lacquer or whatever, varnish all over them. And yeah, there's bits of old white paint, so some bit of old wood they had lying around, pretty roughly hacked away that. And yeah, some of the paint that they put on there, or the varnish, has got onto the other paint, made a bit of a mess, but we'll put that piece back in as well. I just wanted to see what it was like under there and clean everything. And yeah, quite a bit of rat smell under this record player drawer as well, so I've cleaned that up a bit. I'll see if that's gone. Use some of this, whatever this cleaner stuff is, but it's got like caustic soda in it. Quite good for getting rid of smells, but whether that'll be enough, I may even have to remove I'm going to remove the chassis out of that thing anyway, so I might remove the speakers and grill even and give the whole thing a hose out and scrub down. Is another way to get rid of all the urine smell out of it, if it persists. But they certainly made a mess. And these things look like they've got some sort of brass coating on them, but they seem to be steel. They're rusted, but also had a bit of verdigris on them. But pretty solid rails. It's just some screws that hold them to the sides of the cabinet, but until you get the drawer out, you can't get either rail actually out of the machine. You've got to bend those end bits up so you can slide the whole drawer out. This would have been the front of the machine. It's got this bent up piece. Potentially you could bend that down as well, but I thought I won't touch the front bit where you can see it more, and it's got a longer piece of metal. But just bend the ones up on the back of the drawer. You can get in behind it there, and it should just pull out the front. But of course, being aware that there's 4 loose ball bearings in there, you can basically slide it forward once you bend the bits up and get the 2 back ones out. And I think I actually slid it forward and saw there's a couple of black rods that go in there, and took them out. I probably should have left them in there to stop the front bearings rolling backwards. So I think we'll just get maybe even just a cotton bud or something and put a heap of grease on it. I'm sure this must have had some sort of grease when it was out of the factory. I doubt they just had metal rolling on metal. So get the bottom rail, the one with the end ramped up on it. And it really probably only has to go on the edges of it, but But of course, without a manual or anything, I don't know whether the manuals told you how to maintain these radios. They may well have had something about greasing up your tracks. Luckily, none of this bit comes out where you can touch it, I don't think, although does the other... Yeah, I guess the other bit does come out. These bits stay in the cabinet. So the problem with grease is you've got to watch if it comes out of the cabinet with grease on it that someone can put their hands on it. Not such a good idea. But these bits are stationary. You can't get to the ball bearings. So I'll have a look at the other rails, but I think if it's on the underside of those, which is probably why they have the underside, no one's likely to put their hands on it or see it or anything. But of course these are a bit of a dust collector potentially. But I don't want to pull this thing apart again. Yeah, it's the underside of the rail. I think it's safe to do the bit on the drawer. It's the underside of the drawer. I think if we just run some grease down there, and I can always wipe it off these edge bits, because that's about the only place anyone's liable to ever touch it. I don't know why you'd have your hand on the rails, but there's always a risk someone will do something like that. But hopefully this had quite a bit of rough stuff on it, so hopefully this will allow everything to run smoothly now, because there is a bit of weight in this drawer, so I think it needs some lubrication. Getting it back in is probably going to be fun, but I think we've just got to feed a ball bearing in up the front and maybe put those little tubular things in there to hold them in place in the front section. Then we can slide this over the top, and then we can basically slide it right back and pop the back ones in underneath between the two rails, and then just bend the piece over. But I'll prop that up a bit better so it leans backwards, and that should solve that problem. Okay, I have this thing back together. Wasn't really much I could do to bend that little, that's the bit attached to the drawer. Just had to bend them down as best as I could. Looks like in the factory they probably had something sticking out there and bent it and cut it off or something, broke it off. But they're back in, so yeah, just put the front bearings in. You can just sit them in the rail that's attached to the cabinet, and the two sticks of whatever it was. Unfortunately, I did try to get some footage of that, but I mustn't have hit record properly on the phone. But it's all working again. I've even got the record player back in there, much better than before. I basically had to put my knee against this thing to allow it to come out. But the one thing I did miss is this. I should have actually put some washers behind the rail on this end, because this still catches a little bit. Nice and smooth there now. You could almost sort of make it roll itself in. But this corner here, you can see the paint's worn on it. That's actually about 1 millimetre or so across, hitting on the bit of wood there. So I should have spaced that out. If you pull it across, you can get it to go in fine. If I don't, you can hear that squeaking sound. And that is just purely that corner, I think. If I'm pulling on the handle to the other side of the cabinet, it's fine. So I should have put a small washer. You can see how tight it is there. Other side doesn't have a massive gap on it, but there's a bit, you can see a bit of daylight through there. So something there's twisted or shifted. The whole drawer's kind of a bit, yeah, quite tight on one end and not the other. So I should have fixed that really, but not the end of the world. Garrard's back in there and serviced. The only other thing I was thinking is they've got a massive amount of cable here, and they've done a bit of the old dodgy with insulation tape. But this plug can actually be unsoldered. If you solder on the end of those pins, put a soldering iron on there and heat them up, they're just little tubes and the wires will come out. And I think someone sort of added this blue earth wire. But I might fix that. There's plenty of length to reach the chassis, so I might cut off their join in there where that old brown wire is, get rid of the brown wire and just put those new wires off the garage straight into that plug. It'd be a lot safer. And yeah, now I've got the chassis out now, so we'll have a look at that. And yeah, still a bit of a rat smell in here, unfortunately. It's mainly in this corner under that speaker. I am very tempted to take those speakers out and give this thing a good scrub. The garage turntable, I haven't put the clips on, so that can just lift out again. But we may have to do something like that, or maybe just where it is, I can just wet it down a fair bit with a wet rag or something, give that a good rub over and maybe a bit of a scrubbing brush. See if we can get that last smell, but it's a lot better than it was. You know, it used to smell like a gent's urinal, and now I can't actually smell it from here, but I know when I stick my head in there a bit more, I'll notice it. So, screws there, only one left in it, and same on this side, just one left. Couple of wires there, the record player just put back in, has to come out again. That plug, and one's the mains cord, and that big wire goes down to a plug on the amp. Right there. Well, this is the radio chassis out of the Stromberg Carlson. First I've seen of it, it's just 4 screws down the side. This only had 2, but take the knobs off first so that you can sort of hold this as it slides down. And yeah, it looks like the mounts for this glass have just turned into gooey rubber, or at some stage they've been goo, now they've gone hard again. Yeah, that's our broken treble knob there. 4 lamps around it, that one's falling off, but that's just unclipped for some reason. And yeah, this looks like a lot of fun. Possibly some of these have been replaced, but I don't know that it was new enough to have that style of cap in it. I reckon those ones have been changed at some point. That green Duke on might be a newer one too. Doesn't look like these older paper caps. So someone's done some repairs. I mean, the fact that it had screws missing means someone's been in here. It looks like a bit of earth wire's been added across here. Doesn't look factory. Oh yeah, there's something been unsoldered from the chassis in several places by the look of it. Oh, that cap's been changed. Those resistors look like newer ones. So this thing's definitely had some repairs done or mods done, who knows what. But it looks like it hasn't been the most reliable thing on earth. Oh. And we've got to fix the dial cord. I don't think this tube does anything. The Magic Eye, if they've had a lot of use, they tend to be burnt out anyway. There's the dial cords. Well, who knows whether it's snapped or a rat's chewed on it. It's pretty frayed on the end, so some vermin's probably been at it. And that went round. It almost looks like a little wooden pulley on there. And onto this big drum here. And that tuning cap was doing some weird stuff. I wonder if some of the plates are shorting out or something. Are they bent or dirty or something, but it kept cutting out. There's something making a noise, but that's probably just the drum bit on the end with this cord everywhere. I've got the cord all just wrapped around it by the look of it. I probably shouldn't mess with that too much, but I'm trying to find where it actually goes. So that's the bit that comes across this way. Oh, there's the other end. Is out under the valves there. So that went down there, and then there's a piece down in there. Oh, well, that's actually a piece that's come off. There's the other bit there though, that's frayed. So that's the other bit, so that must have gone down around the drum. And then where maybe to this pulley here, yeah, they're little, I think they're little wooden pulleys. Well, there's 2 pulleys there. That could have come off. Oh no, there's the, of course we've got the tuning knob attachment there. So I would have wrapped around that brass shaft a few times that sticks out to the tuning knob, then round this pulley and back. I mean, it shouldn't be too hard to recreate that, I wouldn't think. But still a bit of messing around. I don't have any dial cord anymore either. I used to have a roll of it, I think. You could buy the stuff on a roll of, I don't know how many metres, but enough to last a lifetime. And I probably threw that away, and that is loose. I was going to say, I think that was stuck down. It's kind of stuck. That's actually on a block of wood as well. But that's got some black rubbery mess on it. Might just be full of dust and stuff. But I think that might need repairing. It's certainly very tight to move. Could be why the thing broke, but looks like there's some sort of felty stuff there, even though you can barely see it from the dirt. And yeah, this glass must have sat, I would have thought it sat higher than that, but yeah, what a pain. Yeah, there is, oh I see, there's a felt right behind it, which has got some sort of muck on it. So the fun part, and we had something written there at some stage on the glass, but that's mostly been rubbed off. So the first thing I think is going to be to try and gently remove this. Hopefully it's brittle enough to break off. It's kind of rubbery still. Try not to break the glass in the process. And that glass I think is well stuck down. That's what I'm worried about. You really shouldn't lever it. Gonna have to get a knife under that, I think. And then I'm gonna have to work out what I can put there to replace this stuff. And that's just gone to pure goo. Or at least one stage it's gone liquid by the look of it, and then it's like bitumen or something is what it looks like when the road melts in the hot sun. Ooh, I can hear the glass creaking a bit, which worries me. It is moving a bit. The rubber is anyway. Because it's a bit of a disaster if you break the glass. Probably should be doing this outside because it's going to make a mess on the bench. But nothing a vacuum cleaner won't fix. Very carefully try and get rid of the worst of that off the glass. Then it's going to be a case of getting a knife in there, I think, but even a knife could risk breaking it. And of course there's a big shaft in the way there. It's sort of cutting it, but must be a fair bit under there. Just get rid of what I can. Very rusty too, unfortunately, which, since this is kind of open to the weather a bit, and the strut thing that the radio cabinet part, it's not really a drawer, but the tilting part that this sits in, that definitely needs some work. Ooh, I do not like doing this. Yeah, this is not going to be good. Let's just cut that out of there. There's nothing redeemable in that bit. That can't be reused. Oh shit, better be careful of the pointer. And I guess it's good that at least I don't have to worry about the cord at the moment because it's already broken in multiple places. Don't know if I could use the acetone or something, or if that might dissolve this stuff a bit. I guess it could be worth a try. Because dissolving it though, then there's a risk of getting it on this paint on the glass and dissolving that as well. Which no more like it would just dissolve that and not the rubber. that sound of the glass. Oh shit, it came loose though. And that end's loose. Once we've got that loose, we can probably lever it a bit. I think we're going to have to take, does that just lift off? Oh, it's got a metal band around it, I think. It comes, ooh, making sure I don't hit the glass with that. Oh, wait, what's it doing? It's got the black stuff attached to it, I think. It's lifting that up as well. Yeah, big blob of black rubber there. And it'll do the same with the base, I guess. Comes off pretty easy. Making that noise again. That's good. We can probably just wobble it loose. I don't really care if the rubber comes with it or not. Probably better if it does in a way. It's stuck over the side. I'm going to have to chip that away a bit. Getting awfully close to the edge of the glass. Let's just peel that off a bit. Just make sure I don't flick the glass off someplace. Ah, there we go. Oh yeah, so that's like square bits that went through. Look how far that one's drifted. Well, because the glass has slid down. And that is filthy on the back. You've got to be very careful cleaning these things too. I might have to dig through the old Electronics Australia magazines, because I'm sure in the radio restoration columns in there they told you how to clean these things, and I forget what they said. Maybe it was ultrasonic cleaner or something, but even that might shake the stuff loose. There's some clever technique, I think, of cleaning the back of the glass. That really does not want to come off even. Just going to have to work it slowly, I think, and tear it bit by bit. It's here it comes. Twist it off. So that's going to have to go somewhere safe. And yeah, a lot of rust. And yeah, there's some probably rat urine or something on there. Who knows what that is, I'd hate to think. Changed colour. This whole thing almost needs refurbing because it's gone light in places. Refurbing, no pun intended, since it's like fur. It's like a brown teddy bear or something, that. But more felty sort of stuff, I guess. So maybe I can find some felt in the modern world. That's absolutely filthy, but I don't think there's any glow coming out of that. I'm going to take it and brush it off a bit, I think. Yeah, just brushing all the dirt off it helped. I cleaned the light bulbs and this, and clean this bit of metal here off just with a bit of basic cleaner, and that slides a lot better now. So probably have to do both sides of that with a bit of at least scourer, if not steel wool or something, or maybe even a bit of metal polish or something, because that should then slide again nicely. But it looks a lot better than it did, but still faded on some of this brown stuff. I don't know if I dare to clean that dial at all. I think we can clean the rest of the front of it off, I guess. I probably shouldn't even sit the back of it on anything, because I already cleaned the outside of this a fair bit because it was absolutely filthy. Oh, you can see how filthy it is around the edges probably, especially over that white stuff. That wasn't quite that bad everywhere, but it was pretty bad. This thing's been in storage for quite a while. In a not so clean place. Possibly with the radio open, I'm guessing. That's got some, God knows what's stuck on there. I've only got one mount that's still half decent, and not sure that's much good, but I guess it shows us what they were originally like. Now I can test it on this little bit of already damaged stuff up in the corner. Thankfully I think this stuff is fairly well attached. I really shouldn't touch it, but me being me, I can't help myself, can I? Maybe it's being out in the sun that wrecks them. The problem is I'll get halfway through it and then it'll rip all the stuff off. I think this is pretty well attached, thankfully. But don't do this at home. I feel I'm going to put a bit of stuff on there to soak it a bit now, should mean less rubbing. So that's come out well. At least they printed that out of something good, because many of these just fall off. That bit that's missing up the top there has probably been damaged by the actual, because the glass has dropped in and someone's used the radio and the pointer's just rubbed over it, I'm guessing. Oh, doesn't that look a million times better? Getting it back to its former glory, when it was someone's pride and joy, which it certainly hasn't been for a long time by the look of it. So some sort of rust patch. I might have to get something more industrial strength onto that. Yeah, it's probably going to take quite a bit of polishing away to completely get the dirt off that. But that is such an improvement over what it was not long ago. Where does that roughly sit? Down in there. So they went down lower. So it did pretty much sit against this fur. I think I've probably pushed the lamps on too far now. Well, that's where they stopped, so I assume that's where they should go. Oops. Ah, now I can't get them off again. There we go. Just get these lamps back a bit here, and it must have sat something like that. But yeah, up high enough that that can slide under there without touching the glass. But that's a big improvement over what it looked like when I got it, though yes, now it's drying out, there's still a bit of muck on the back. So I'm going to have to make up some replacements for those things, even a wooden block or something, since I've got so much wood in it already. Bit of wood with a slot in it, or some bit of metal with some rubber pushed into it or something. Not sure what we're going to do. That's the sort of thing a 3D printer would be good for, I guess. Though it'll be hard plastic. I really want something with a bit of give in it, because this thing's exposed to the outside world, and in case someone bumps it hard with something, it's better if it's got some flex in it. See, that's got a linkage, metal linkage across, and runs this big rotary switch. I mean, that could do with a clean probably. At least now I've got the stuff out of it, I can probably hook it up to a proper antenna. Yeah, I can see corrosion on those switches, but I don't think it's enough to mess it up necessarily. It's more on the little crimp bit, but that could cause issues. Probably should check those switches actually still work. That's the other one there's got a shaft straight into it. The Gram radio one. And I guess I should check some of these electrolytic capacitors for a start. Are they what, you know what someone's been soldering on the chassis there? The whole chassis's been scratched away at, so that's probably to enable it to be soldered to. But you're soldering to steel, so I don't know if you need like the sort of acidy flux that they use on guttering and stuff, or whether that was just for the zinc coating. I've never tried to solder to steel. And oh yeah, better save our pointers escaping. So that's the 3 electrolytics. They're all IF cans, I think. And most of these electrolytics are power filtering, so there they all are. Probably not going to cause any radio reception problem, just a bit of hum I would think. But you never know. Let's test them out. See what sort of readings we get. 0.36, that one would be good I think. 0.2, 0.2, so they're probably all fine. We've got a lot of these paper caps and stuff. At least nothing got under here and gnawed on anything by the look of it. You can get resistors go high, all sorts of things. That actually looks a tad corroded. Verdigris or something on there, hard to tell for sure, but that does look like it could be corroded. What was this? 100k, 200k's in parallel. It's often worth checking the ones that have failed before because they sometimes fail again in this sort of stuff. Probably because they were under duress to start with from the design stage. So that should be a 50k. That's not measuring. Oh, here we go. 50k. So that's fine. God knows how you read some of these. Is this brown, black, yellow or something? 100k, I'd say it is. And there's a second one. Everything's 100k around here by the look of it. Yeah. 100k. There's another 100k. Geez, I must have bought a lot of 100k's. Oh, here's another one that's been replaced. Look at this, 47k by the look of it. Yeah, these yellow caps are probably both new ones. Certainly look like they've been soldered to the plastic Ducon likely. These blue things, can't quite read any manufacturers on those. Could be the valves are getting low, could be anything. But the fact it's had that many caps replaced would suggest it's probably had a lot of use maybe, or it was used well into its old age. And I don't know if I've got another one of these. I might forget what this was. Oh, there it is, 6U5. Probably worth getting another one if I can get this thing to run, but it might be worth, like I say, hooking it up to a proper outside antenna. Someone's marked it as an A&E antenna on Earth. Have a quick look at the amp as well. And this thing, I think, must be at least 10 kilos, probably just that transformer, but I think there's other transformers in here. And yeah, I think I better get it out and clean the last of the rat poo and stuff of it. Yeah, I think they're all transformers. Very little under there. I'll just brush that muck off it first. Okay, it's a bit cleaner, but not a lot less smelly. Definitely got a bit of rat odour on this. Oh, that was the light lamp socket. I think that was the phono compartment lamp plugged in there. Just wonder what it was. That's an electrolytic capacitor, Ducon. We've got some tarry stuff coming out of there. Probably perfectly fine. They're both definitely transformers. Where's the other one? There. So I think they're all... Oh, that's the output transformer. I can see the two big copper wires going to the speaker socket. What are the other two? Are they input transformers or something? And we've got this rubber coated wire that's looking very iffy. Really wants replacing. And 2 electrolytics there. Let's just test those. Might as well while we're in it. .4 and 3 of them. Didn't even notice I found a new one while I was doing that. 0.2, that's all good. 0.9, this is only 25 microfarad. They're probably even lower in value potentially. So 25. What was it measuring? Only 1. Might be a little higher than the others in a way, but that's all there is to that. Not an awful lot. But yeah, probably should remove all the valves and clean them up. I forget what that must be, the little preamp valve. That's a bit loose in its base. Those capacitors, they're all 16 microfarad caps. Oh, there's one more down here I didn't do, I think, which is another 16, I think. There's always one you miss. Let's just check that one as well. A little higher than the others, I think. .5 instead of 0.2. Yeah, it's 0.46. So a couple of them slightly different value, but still well within tolerance. I wonder if that was a phono ground or something, or maybe chassis ground. And there's a second socket there. I'm not sure why it's wired up in parallel with the other one. Don't know why you'd need 2 record changer power sockets. Maybe it's for some other accessory or something. I can't think what in those days. So if I can hook up the speaker to this, plug it back into the other unit, that's our mains in. Now which 2 pins? The speaker. Yeah, these 2 outer ones are where the speaker goes. It's probably not too worried about impedance since it's transformer coupled. Oh, yeah. That is so heavy. Just got to make sure we keep this away from 240 volts and stuff. And make sure there's no wires or anything going under this thing. Gotta plug our other unit back in there. I thought that's where the 2 big pins were. Oh, it must be one of these bloody things. Oh, there. And the 4 pin back into here. Keeping the speakers well away from mains and from shorting out on anything. I think that's all there is to it. Might need the knob so I can actually turn this thing on and off. Probably should turn the power off really since there's high voltages in this thing, but
don't let it rust away. Cash it in at Tomo's Cash for Scrap in Wangaratta. You need to get rid of old tin fences, appliances, or even an unwanted car. Scrap car. Tomo's makes it easy. Their professional team provides you a bin and pays.
certainly picking up a lot more now. Then it does that weird stuff. Just the tuning cap. Might just be grot on the tuning cap or something. Yeah, it seems to still doing it there. Why does it do that at one frequency? Is that some sort of feedback? Motorboating.
System. And then if the question was asked, well, if we...
최사 퍼센트를 기록하여 두째 날 종료가 되었습니다.
The same for Melka, who has got stains.
Anything on shortwave? Doesn't sound like it. Some action there. Parts of the radio are live, I think. Could we have bad transformers or something? Bad switching? Who knows? And it's weird that this causes motorboating sometimes, and you give it a whack and it comes good. Can we check if the... I guess we can check if the tuning cap shorts to ground, can't we? I think one half of it is ground already. Can't remember. Can't remember if someone said they had to be grounded or... Looks like it is. Oh, that one's not even connected, so we won't need to worry about that. Might be a 3-gang cap, but it's not using all 3. Do we get any sign of shorting? Doesn't look like it. So I think we can say the tuning cap's alright. Check the unused one anyway. So we don't need to worry about that. Looks like I can unscrew this here. That's a nice design. Well, maybe if we can get that out. It's a Brymer. Made in England, 6U5, I think G just means glass, encapsulated rather than metal, like some early valves, or maybe special purpose ones. I went and had another look at this radio. I didn't bother taking the camera because I wasn't sure if I was going to get very far with it. But I sort of had a feeling it could be an open circuit coil or something, since the shortwave section was completely dead, and I was thinking about where to start checking things. I thought, why don't I just look at these valves, this EBF 35, ECH 35, and just switch between shortwave and AM while measuring the voltages on them. I checked the heater voltage, of course, which, you know, you can see the heaters are running, but just to make sure that was right, and that was fine. So I started on this ECH 35, checked all the voltages. This is our band switch here, 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 and is it somewhere else? I forget. There's another one hiding there, there. So there's a few of them. Quite a few. It's probably more that I haven't even clicked on. That's our radio gram switch over here. So I thought I'll just flick that switch from position to position. This one had a few voltages that changed a fair bit, but nothing really disappeared. So I went to this valve and measured a few things. I think about the third pin I got on there must have been this pin 3 at the top here, the anode. And that went from 260 volts down to 0 volts. So I thought, well, that's likely our problem, or at least an indication of the problem. I followed the voltage. When you're in the AM, it was going to this coil. Basically, I had a look at the contacts on the switch. It was a red wire running from the switch into that valve. You could see from the underside, the base socket, there was the little keyway thing that sets on the valve socket, on the valve actual pins, and that was the third pin around, so I thought it probably is pin 3. And this switch here, I could follow this one through and it was fine. There was voltage coming out of this coil here. When you switch it to this position, no voltage. So when I checked on the circuit, if you can't follow this line all the way back, it goes to pin 4 on this plug. That's the plug between the radio chassis and the amp chassis. We're down on the amplifier here, and it just goes to this 3 capacitors and 2 inductors that filter the voltage from the rectifier diode. You've got 300 volts center tapped or something there, so it should be about 300 volts. I think when you turn the volume down, it does go as high as 300. And I turn the power off. This just shows one connection here to the 300 volt line for both coils. And you could find that pin easy enough with the 260 odd volts as it was at the time. So I assumed it was probably an internal connection. And when I did a ohms test or continuity test here, yeah, that coil measured as open circuit. It didn't connect to the B plus rail there. So, which pretty much confirmed my initial suspicion that it was probably going to be an open circuit coil or something. I did actually hook up across these two with a jumper wire just to see if that produced any sound, but which it didn't, and not surprising given that this coil is then switched in to couple to the next stage. But of course it's open circuit, it's not going to couple anything. So when I was looking under the chassis, I actually thought you had to unsolder the whole coil to get it out, but then I realised there's 3 separate nuts holding the cover on compared to holding the main coil assembly on. So we're going to have a look at the radio itself now, what I did there to actually fix this thing. So this middle coil here was the one that was causing the issues with the shortwave. We've got this red wire here that someone's dagged an earth on for some reason. Comes back to this valve here, the front one, and that is where the 260 odd volts or B plus was coming from. And I followed this wire. If you look at the back of the switch, you can see where the contacts go. And that went to this pin here. And then I could find it was coming in on this pin here. But when we went to shortwave, it's meant to come out of this pin through the other winding, and there was nothing there. So the voltage would disappear to that valve. So that's the coil there. I haven't put the cover back on it yet. And I had a bit of a look. I could see some of these windings were okay, but the wire is now bare here. It actually had a bit of this red tubing on it, but it comes out of a little hole in it must go up somewhere inside the inner part of this thing, or maybe it's this little coil wrapped around the bottom here. Goes in through a hole. That little wire there had some of that tube on. And when I actually poked it, the tube used to come down here somewhere. I noticed that after messing around a bit that the tube had actually separated from this pin with the solder on it, and you could see a little bit of green corrosion there. I actually had to shove it. I couldn't actually pull the tube off. It was stuck to the wire, and I risked breaking the wire off closer up to the coil here, and then there'd be no hope of fixing it. So I actually stuck my soldering iron up the end of the tube and just melted it sort of open. That's the old bit of tubing. So I shoved it up one end, and then when I was looking to try and work out where the wire had gone, it actually came off, so it must have just been stuck at that end. I didn't bother putting that back on there because too much hassle. Managed to heat it up a lot. Looks like it burnt some of the lacquer off. And then I actually got it up against a screwdriver with a knife and just scraped it slightly, and seemed fine after that. Got it tinned, and then just had to bend it so that it came over to this post here and soldered it on, and that fixed it. And to get this coil out, that's the cover off it. So they've actually got 3 screws underneath there. Looking at these coils, there's like 2 bolts there to hold the coil part on, the internals, but there's another 3 around each one, which gets this cover off. So I undid those, and of course the cover doesn't just slide off. What on earth's it got up inside there? Some sort of black thing. Oh, is that some ferrite thing that actually changes the inductance or something? Didn't even notice that. But you've actually got to get this bracket out of the way. So there's 2 bolts on the back here, is easy enough. Didn't really move it much. You've got to take this screw out. I've just got it temporarily back in there on the mount for one of the dial cord pulleys. And also had to undo the screws that go into this control. That's the band switch. I think I actually loosened the 2 screws and tried moving this band switching. It's got a mechanical linkage here. That didn't really help. There's 2 screws there, and I think there's another screw in here. You got to loosen all those off. You can't even get that screw out because there's stuff in the way. But that's enough just to move it sideways enough that you can get that coil cover on and off. Might give that a good clean up while it's out, I guess. And of course, as soon as I switched it on, before I even got sound out, the amplifier started making a weird noise. Kind of hissing sound and stuff, and for a minute I thought it was one of the transformers doing something weird. But this capacitor here decided it was going to die. I checked I'd got everything right here, that's why I put a couple of screws in, make sure I wasn't shorting anything out. And then I turned it on again, I could just see the smoke starting to come out of this cap. So of course that failed right at that moment. So I've disconnected the resistor and wire that are on the base of that. That's just completely disconnected at the moment. And once I got that disconnected, turned the radio on, and it immediately came up with a shortwave station. So that fixed that. And it still does seem to have some issues with the ends of the bands or something. Don't seem to be working perfectly. But it could tune plenty of channels there. Not sure if we'll get anything now. I guess I could fire it up. But it's daytime, so probably nothing to be had. I might put all this back together first. And I did look into that magic eye as well. This one does have the slightest glow if you look, but I'm not sure it's actually doing anything beyond that. I did check the voltages. It's again got the B+, I think, going in there. Comes up this red spaghetti here onto this terminal block. There's a blue wire, I think, goes over, and that's the grid, which also is the grid of another valve. So if the rest of this, I think it's this valve here, if that's working, I assume that grid voltage is correct. It's got its B+, it's got its heater wires coming across here, and I think the other one's ground, and that's all there is. So I'm pretty sure that's worn out. I mean, they're on the whole time that the sets are on, so they're going to lose the mission eventually, I guess. But the bad news is it's like at least $100 to get one off eBay. And you can, I think you can get an equivalent one that's more sensitive or something. I did find a website that tells you equivalents of these things, and you may have to modify the circuit. I think the cheapest I can get one of those is around $50, so I don't think I'll bother replacing that. It's a bit on the expensive side. If I was able to fully restore this thing, maybe it'd be worth it. But given the radio's not even working 100%, I've still got to fix the dial cord. And yeah, the original turntable's gone. I don't think I'll bother putting that sort of money into it. It doesn't mean that much to me. Now, if someone wanted to restore it, that'd be another thing they'd really have to do. It'd be nice to have a magic eye, but I'm not that excited about them. I might keep an eye out. You do see a few radios around with them in there. I didn't realise they were so expensive. So I might keep an eye out, but chances are they're all probably going to be low emission or completely burnt out. But that's where I got to with this, so I'll give that cover a bit of a clean. Looks like we're going to have to replace that capacitor. Just fit another one under the chassis there. What are they, 525 peak voltage? It's probably best to, all three of them are in, well, they're not quite in parallel, they're across the same rail, but there are inductors. I guess these big inductors here are in between them. So it might be best to solder a good one, a good fresh new one underneath each one of them and disconnect the voltage from those. But at least I've got the radio going. I'm really happy that that wasn't too hard to do. And like I say, it's just a matter, I think I started on that valve, since there's a couple of resistors replaced and stuff. Just went around each pin measuring all the voltages. Nothing too drastic between them. I think one voltage changed by about 60 volts and stuff, but when I got to this valve, yeah, immediate drop off of that wire there. And it's like, yeah, well, that's got to be the issue. So you can do it just with a multimeter, even if you're not that, like me, you're not that familiar with valve circuits or radio circuits. And I virtually have no tested gear, though I did get one of those little signal generator things, which I'll have to have a play around on another radio with that. But at least we only had one band missing on this, makes it a lot easier. You know most of the circuitry's working. There may still be issues with caps or resistors or even valves in this thing, but at least we got the band working again. It was really hard to get that little fine wire tinned and stuff, but it was worth doing the job. I've given this chassis a bit of a clean up, still haven't put that cover back in, but I'll have to put all that back together. But cleaned up all the valves, took them out and cleaned them, cleaned off the top of most of these parts, so it looks quite a bit better cleaned up. Still not perfect, but that's a lot better than it was. So I think that's the main thing I'll do for now. I'll put that radio bit back together, and the amp chassis I'll give a bit of a clean up as well. And that's probably going to be most of what I actually do with this thing. I've still got to clean out the cabinet a bit. Might take the speakers out and have a look at those. And I do need to chase up some string for a dial cord, because it'd be nice to get that back in. And then I should really think about whether I can get this radio a bit better. It seems to work in the middle of the band quite well, but other bits not so well. So not sure if that's something to do with the IF is not right, or the oscillator's dying, or who knows what. I'm not very familiar with radio faults, so I don't really have any idea what's causing that. This thing was sounding like it had a bit more hum on the AM, so I'm not sure if that's because I've disconnected that cap or because I've got that cover off. That might be causing more interference or something, or maybe it's something else. Who knows if it's going to develop new faults as it goes. But that'll do for this part. And yeah, the next thing we might do is try and string up a dial cord off to see if I can get some proper dial cord string, or whether I can find something to substitute for it. I'm sure antique radio guys have something they use. And then yeah, I might give the amp a quick clean up, clean all the valves off and stuff, make it at least look half decent. I have to see about getting some new capacitors for it, because I might bypass those. These three in here could probably do with the same treatment. They're all 16 microfarad, I think, so 4 on there, 4 on here. I think 450 volts is about the highest you can get, which these are on 300 volt odd rail anyway. I think they're 525 peak, but that's probably what they had in stock. I doubt it needs to be rated that high, and it might be worth checking some of the caps under the chassis. Those old paper caps could well be worth disconnecting an end of each of those and measuring the capacitance. Sometimes that's just the easiest way to diagnose these sort of things, is go through and fix that sort of thing. See if we can find any resistors that are high, caps that are high. So I might even do that at the same time. See if I can get this dial working, because it's a real pain having to have the chassis out to adjust it. And I think that's the main part of it. I'll have to work out some sort of mounts for that glass display. See if I can get that back into the thing. and at least it'll be sort of mostly working then. We might be able to get it working a bit better. And it's actually kind of a functional unit then, which is the main thing. So thanks for watching.